I want to welcome you back to this particular session. But before we move forward, I just want to know, how many of you learned a whole lot from that very first session? How many of you now, I know if I check in with you tomorrow is Friday, so maybe I won't check Friday, but if I check in with you on Monday, you guys are all going to have your Facebooks, you're going to have your Twitter, and you're going to be on YouTube, and we're going to be hodgepodging and dish-dashing and networking and dashboarding and all of those other things. How many of you feel like you're ready? We got a lot of information, didn't we? Good. So you're enjoying the conference thus far, I take it. Is that a fair assessment? Yeah. Okay. Thank you for the applause back there. I like that. Feedback. Now, I need to remind you still of our housekeeping things. Those of you who have your, I think Gustavo said, your smartphones, your dumb phones, or your wayward phones, or any other electronic devices, we're just reminding you, we recognize that you need to peep at them, you need to stay connected with your office, but we are asking you to just silence them or put them on vibrate. And the other reminder, thank you for taking time in your 15-minute break to go out and visit the exhibit hall. You will have another opportunity in about an hour or so to visit the exhibits. After we complete this session, we're going to all vacate this space. We're going to go out and spend some time in the exhibit hall while they set up for lunch. So we know we don't want to impede the people setting up for lunch. So I know we're all going to vacate in a timely manner. So anyway, I just want you to know there will be additional opportunities to visit the exhibit hall. Before we move into our session and while we're talking about the exhibit hall, I want to remind you or bring your attention to a couple of things. One of them is on your table, you see this little black card? All of you should have a supply of them on your round table. And it's telling you about a Family Dollar store. I want you to take your time after the conference or during lunch and read this, because this is sharing information about a national decisions by a corporation, that national corporation being Family Dollar Store, Inc. Family Dollar Store has made a decision from their corporate office to sell tobacco products in their stores. They currently do not. They want to, and we're saying that we don't believe that's a good idea. We want you to rethink that. So this card is giving you information on that and giving you some clues into how you can actually become very active in helping us to redirect Family Dollar Store decision to sell tobacco products. Now, to help us with the Family Dollar Store campaign, if you would go by the Coalition for Tobacco-Free Arkansas stand or little exhibit space out in the hallway, we have a resolution that's been developed, and we have a copy of it so you can read it. Along with the resolution, we have a signature pages, and we're asking for individuals here today to please sign off on the signature page, because we're going to take those names, attach it to the resolution, and that resolution will be mailed to the corporate headquarters. So you can do that for us too. So Coalition for Tobacco-Free Arkansas, little booth out in the hallway at the exhibit hall, okay? Then the third thing on the table, some valuable stuff, so I want to make sure you take advantage of helping us to move the tobacco control movement forward in any way we can. This is another opportunity for you to help. You see a white sheet of paper should be on the tables. I think there's one right there. This is actually a support, showing your support to ban menthol flavoring in tobacco products. Back in 2009, the FDA passed a bill, the president signed into law in June 2009, giving the FDA authority to actually regulate tobacco products. When this whole law was done, flavorings for tobacco products were banned. every flavor for cigarettes, if you will, was banned, but menthol was not included in that. We know that in communities of color, menthol products are more heavily used. And so we believe that menthol should also be included in the flavoring that are banned. So we're asking you, if you believe that and you can support that, to sign off, leave this sheet of paper on your table or leave it out at the registration table, but we need your signatures on that as well. Okay. So anyway, that's my plea to you. Now to get to the meat of the matter is the panel discussion. We have with us today a group, look at these faces up here with me, look at them, of individuals, and they have some great information to share with you. These 4 individuals all have in common that they are former smokers. And they're here today to share their story. I have with me, and this is to my immediate right, Carletta Hampton. Ms. Hampton is a native of Ashtabula, Ohio, which is located on the outskirts of Cleveland and Erie. A family move transplanted her to Arkansas in 1989, and she currently calls North Little Rock home. She is the proud mother of 2 sons, Robert and Arlton, and the beaming grandmother to 2 precious grandsons. Ms. Hampton's faith is a major influence in her life, and she is a devoted member of Second Baptist Church in North Little Rock. She is an avid gardener with an ultimate goal to become a ranking master gardener, and if so, she will become my best friend because I know how to go to the garden and not much else. Then I have to my immediate left here, Miss Jean Moses. Jean Moses resides in Little Rock, Arkansas, where she's employed by the Little Rock School District. Jean is enjoying a healthier lifestyle after a heart surgery 7 years ago. Ms. Moses realized the presence of smoking and is grateful for a second chance. Ms. Moses is divorced and has 1 adult son. Sitting next to Ms. Moses, we have Reverend Thurman Robinson. He's been ministering for 7 years, originally from Portland, Arkansas. We know that big old town. He currently resides in Monticello. Reverend Robinson stopped smoking 15 years ago. Although he is retired, he stays active by working with his son and running the Right Choice, which is a mobile barbecue business. And I've heard about that business. They tell me he has good barbecue, so hopefully we'll get a chance to sample that, and I will let you know the next time I see you, if indeed that is true. Okay. Reverend Robinson is married to Jacqueline Robinson, and they have 4 children and 2 grandchildren. Our 4th panelist is none other than Debbie Rushing. And this is Miss Debbie. Debbie earned a bachelor's degree in community health from the University of Arkansas at Little Rock, and she is currently section chief for the state community interventions for the Tobacco Prevention and Cessation Program. And I thought Coalition for Tobacco-Free Arkansas was a lot to spit out. And she's been in that position since November 2011. Prior to working for the Arkansas Department of Health, Debbie was a tobacco control intervention manager for the Arkansas Children's Hospital, where she educated pediatric faculty, residents, and fellows in the basics of tobacco cessation intervention for both their patients and their patients/caregivers. In addition, she was responsible for system changes, implementing comprehensive tobacco cessation and clinic practices at ACH, Arkansas Children's Hospital, and assisted graduate residents. So she was working with all of these doctors, teaching them all about what they needed to know about tobacco intervention. And she also is very schooled and doing her work while adhering to best practices. So Debbie has a whole other list of accomplishments, but the one that I will share with you, and then we will hear from the panel. She is the only master level certified tobacco treatment specialist in the state of Arkansas. So I feel that we are so blessed to have her among our ranks and working with us in tobacco control. So let's welcome our panelists. Now, before we move forward, I had a special request made of me by one of our panelists, and I am going to honor that. I am going to let Pastor Robinson stand, and he wants to make comments because he wants to kind of self-introduce and say some things. So I will allow you at this time to make your brief remarks.
Good morning. Good morning. I just want to express a few things. First, I want to ask, are there any smokers out here? Okay. All right, let me go on then. I just wanted to express how I started smoking. Okay. Okay. Well, I just want to, like I said, I just want to express a few things. I just want to, tell you that, it's really a privilege to be here and, and tell you all about myself and about smoking and how bad smoking is for you. So with that, Miss Donaldson, what I was about to say, she basically, she's going to ask it on the panel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Listen, I am so delighted that Reverend Thurman Robinson is here with us. I've heard so much about him. This is the first time we've actually had a face-to-face conversation, but I do know that his reputation precedes him in terms of the story and his story of being a former smoker. So I am very anxious today, and I'm glad that he is very anxious to tell this story. So we know that we are in for a good ride. So Reverend Robinson, with your permission, I'm ready to jump in. Is that okay?
Yes.
All right. Now, my first question to all of you, and I would like for all of you to answer, it's going to be pretty simple, almost like a yes or no. But I just need one answer. Research shows that most smokers started smoking cigarettes before the age of 18. How old were you when you started? And we can start with Carletta.
12.
12?
13.
13?
10.
10? 20. You all do the math. We had about 80% starts, and that number is probably even higher, but people used to average about 80% of all smokers start before the age of 18, and we know in the state of Arkansas you have to be, at least 18 to have cigarettes. So you heard those numbers, but that would be too easy just to have the first question, they tell us the age. So we got to have a follow-up. We just can't make it that easy. Now that we know when they started, we need to know, I want you to listen carefully because this is a three-part question. What influenced you to start? What was the single most regret you have? What is the single most regret you have about being a smoker? And when you smoke, did you smoke inside of your home, car, or workplace, or any other public places? And if you can't remember those three things, I'll be happy to repeat them. But who would like to go first?
I'll take it.
Okay.
My influence, I guess, I was a late bloomer. Up late, cramming for exams. I was in college, and this was my midnight crutch. And I would drink instant Folgers coffee, and I picked up the first cigarette. That was the first mistake that I made. And it continued from there because it was somewhat like a stimulus. And that was particularly my crutch for my influence. So the influence was, it was an aid in a way to what I was doing with the coffee. The single most regret that I have, I was always self-conscious as to how I smelled, my clothing. And I love to dress. Okay, I love to dress. And so it was the smell of that in my clothing and in my hair. I started smoking in, my dormitory room, because we could smoke at that time. And I smoked at home, and one regret of that is that I didn't realize how much it was in my draperies, it was in my clothing. Even if I had them clean, the smoke was in the house. It was everywhere, and in the car. At work, after a while, when you could not smoke at your desk, I had this. The worst thing that they made was this cigarette ashtray that had the little fan in it that was supposed to pull the smoke away from everything. Well, it got dirty so often until it stinked. So pretty much they took the smoking away from our desk, and we had to go to this little room, which was like a matchbox. So you was breathing in your smoke and receiving other smoke, and so that was out. So pretty much the three things that you covered, that pretty much sums up what happens to me in my smoking era.
Okay. Debbie, how about you?
Well, first, what I'd like to share is I never played house without being a smoker. And if I didn't have my candy cigarettes, which I bought with my allowance by cleaning my mom and dad's ashtrays, I got a quarter each time I did that. So then I went and bought my candy cigarettes so that I could play house and smoke at the same time. I also was a child that was constantly in the hospital with ear infections and ear problems because of my parents smoking, but back then we didn't know that that's what was causing all of that. So my biggest regret is that I picked up the habit in the first place after being a child that was in the hospital chronically, dealing with the effects of tobacco and secondhand smoke.
Thank you. Carletta?
I began smoking by lighting my mom's cigarettes. She would ask me to go light a cigarette, or her sister would be there from Buffalo and I would light their cigarettes, and that's how I began smoking. I'm still a smoker. I've tried to quit throughout the years. I have 2 sons that smoke, and I beg them all the time to quit smoking. It's not as easy as, to some people it's easier. I smoke because it relaxes me. It's better than having a drink. Every evening from coming home from work, I can sit back and have a cigarette. I'm a closet smoker. I don't like for people to know that I smoke. I don't smoke around certain people. I try not to, I don't like the way it smells, so I don't want it on my clothes and I don't want it in my house, but I do smoke. And as of right now, I have no intention on quitting. To be honest with you, I don't plan on quitting. It relaxes me. When I'm nervous or I'm upset or I have financial problems or whatever's going on in my life, a cigarette helps me. It's a crutch, and it helps me. And maybe one day I'll be able to quit it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, once again, I started smoking when I was 10. And like the lady on the end, I started by lighting cigarettes also for my mother. She used to tell us to go light her a cigarette. And one day, my sister and I, we decided we wanted to see what it tastes like. So she told me to inhale, and I did. And that's how I began smoking. And the thing that really influenced me also was that I had friends that were maybe a couple years older than I was. And, you know, a lot of times we'd be influenced by what other people do. And being in a small city that there was not much to do, you know, smoking I guess we thought make you look like you were grown or different or whatever. But that's what really influenced me. And then what I regret the most is it started affecting my health. I started coughing a lot. and I couldn't play sports as well as I needed to at a very young age. And so I noticed after, stop smoking, my cough went away, and I could do things better. And another thing that I regret was the money. You might not believe it, but when I started, I think they were like 35, 50 cents a pack. And when I quit, they were right at $3 a pack. And I was smoking like a pack a day. And those $3 really added up in a year's time. So that's another thing I regret about the money that I spent on it.
Okay. Thank you. Now, we have a picture of our panelists in their first step in becoming a smoker. And we know that this is kind of like life. If you look at, I think of a tombstone of a person who lived and has now gone on. They have the year they were born, then they have a dash, and then they have the year that they passed on, usually. But I found out it's really what's in that dash that really matters. What did you do in between? So we're going to go to some of that in-between time and talk about that. And I want to start with Ms. Henderson, if I may, because she's been so open and honest with us to let us know that in her closet smoking, it's not something that she's not even ready to quit. And we're going to talk about quitting. And one of the questions I have for all panelists, how old were you when you first tried to stop? And what motivated you to try? So that is the question, but I need to kind of modify it since you made the statement that you are a smoker, and right now in this period in your life, you said, I'm just not ready to quit and make that decision. But you know what? We're some pretty friendly people, and I think I like to think that, through information and support, hopefully, we can transition that, but we certainly respect where you are today. But with that being said, I need to know, have you ever tried to quit? And this is a modified question for you. And if so, do you mind sharing that with us?
Oh, yes. I've tried to quit multiple times.
Okay.
Multiple times. I've used the patch. I've gone through the hotline. I've tried to quit cold turkey. But I always end up going right back to that cigarette. One time I stopped for a whole year, and that was because I was pregnant. But with my second child, I smoked. I couldn't quit. I couldn't stop. My first child, I stopped. But yes, I've tried plenty of times to try to stop.
Okay. And was that any one motivating factor that drove, you said, I'm going to quit tomorrow? What do you recall as being the motivator? Or if any?
My children was the main one.
Okay.
Because I don't want them to smoke, and they smoke. So I felt like if I quit smoking, maybe they would quit smoking. Because I know in my family, on my mother's side, we're smokers. From my grandmother, my mom, and me. And now my children. And I don't want it to carry on to my grandchildren. So if I can quit, maybe my sons can quit. My mother has quit. I mean, she hasn't smoked in 15 years.
Wow.
But I just haven't got there yet.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Now, I'll go back to the question the way it was originally written. How old were you, and this is to all three of the remaining panelists, how old were you when you first tried to quit, and what motivated you to make that first quit attempt? Reverend Robinson, do you mind if we start with you?
Yes, I was probably around age 20, 21, somewhere like that. I was in the military. I joined the military at age 18. And I noticed that I wasn't doing the PT, so in the military, when you didn't do your PT, they put you out. So then some of my friends was telling me, well, stop smoking, stop smoking. So that's when I first tried to stop smoking, but I wasn't successful. So from that point on, I've tried it at least within a 10-year period, at least 20 times.
Okay. Ms. Moses?
I was about 50 years old when I first made the attempt that I wanted to stop smoking. And about that time, there was a lot of PAs out about quit smoking, the programs that were available, the patch and everything else. Well, I'm allergic to adhesive, so I could not do the patch. And my stopping was progressive. It was where I couldn't do the patch, cold turkey didn't work, and the menthol, and I must agree, is a crutch because I smoke menthol cigarettes. And the only thing that I had to do was to stand on my faith, to be quite honest with you. I couldn't do it by myself. And I prayed about it, and it was the hardest thing for me to do. And I understand what she's going through because I really wanted to, but I couldn't do it in myself. So I asked God, and He did it. And it was where the taste, it was a progression. It was where I presented myself each morning, and I said, well, I'm going to drink this water instead of smoke a cigarette. And each day it increased, and it got better. I could breathe better, and things just happened because I took myself out of the picture and allowed Him to take over. And that's how it happened for me.
Debbie?
Well, my first quit attempt and my only was I picked up my daughter at daycare. She had been crying for hours. I mean, big giant red circles around her eyes. And I was getting mad at the school. Like, why didn't they call me? She's been crying for a long time. And she gets in the car and I said, what's going on? And she said, you and Daddy are going to prison. And I mean, crocodile tears started flowing. And I was like, what? And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, they've turned me into Scan. I'm going to jail. Oh my, I don't know what's happening. Because they didn't really like the way she dressed, so they'd already talked to me about that. That's another story. But so I started panicking. I was like, oh my gosh, you know. And I was like, well, just tell Mom what happened. Just calm down, tell me what happened. Well, the DARE officer, and I went, oh, okay. Because I was working substance abuse rehab at the time and smoked with my patients in therapy sessions. And while we played pool and foosball and all that good stuff. So it tells you when I quit. But so I was like, oh, honey, we don't do drugs. And she turned around on a dime and said, yes, you do, and you know you do. And I was like, busted. I'm busted. You know, what am I going to say? And so I tried to explain, I was going to try to explain that she got what the police officer was saying a little wrong, but then that makes her wrong. That didn't quite feel right to me. I was going to explain that tobacco wasn't as bad as cocaine. Well, yeah, right. So none of that really sat well with me. So as I was about to say something, I don't know what I was going to say, but I was about to say something, all of a sudden, this whole picture of me when I was in 6th grade came home crying my eyes out to my mother because the Lung Association had showed up at school. And the lady actually lit a cigarette in class, took a puff, and blew it through a handkerchief. And it turned brown. I came home that day crying. I was like, oh, my mom's going to quit smoking. I just know it because I'm going to tell her the right truth. She's going to get it and everything's going to be wonderful and she won't die. Well, that conversation didn't work out so well because I was told it was none of my business. But when I saw that whole conversation come back to my memory, I thought, here we go again. Just like you're saying, here we go again. I'm about to say the same thing to my child that I promised myself that night I'm not going to do these things to my kids, where we say one thing and do another. I had made a solid commitment to myself when I was 8. I can tell you about the day, but anyway. Where I was 8 years old and I made a promise to myself I would not do that. And I was about to do that. And I caught myself and I said, you know what, Heather? You are absolutely right, and I'm on it. So I got on it and took care of business.
Thank you. This is a follow-up to the previous question. Did your use of tobacco lead to any health issues that you can share with us today? And this is to all of you. Ms. Moses?
Well, as you can see from my bio, I'm happy to celebrate 7 years after heart surgery. But I didn't have a heart attack, but the damage had already been done for the years of smoking that had occurred in my life. And I'm a survivor. And that's pretty much sums it up.
Reverend Robinson.
Okay. Looking around the room, I don't see any very young people in here, so I think I can say this.
They're across the hall.
Okay, I'll talk about it. Believe it or not, for me, cigarette smoking had an effect on the way I perform sex. And I'm just saying this as easy as I can. It had on my health in that way. And as I said earlier, you know, about the short breath and shortness of breath. And my taste, it had an effect on my ability to taste food correctly. My wife would cook, and sometimes I would get mad with my wife and tell her, you ain't cooking this right. And she goes like, well, I am cooking it right. And after I stopped smoking, I regained my taste buds right back. So.
Thank you. Debbie?
Well, I wouldn't say I quit when I was 26, so I was young, but I'd already had 13 years in on smoking. But when you add together growing up in a home where there were multiple smokers and remaining, you know, visiting my dad and spending weekends there, and the fog that would be in the room, I currently have asthma. And even though I've been quit for so long myself, but just growing up in a home where there was constant smoking in the house, and then my own smoking has caused, you know, for me eventually to get asthma. I didn't have it as a child, but I've gotten it as an adult.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I'm not for sure if smoking has any effect on the surgeries that I've had, but I've had 2 back surgeries, 4 foot surgeries, and I have, they had to build me discs in the lower part of my back because my discs all completely just crumbled up, shattered. So they built me discs and they put pins and screws in my back as I speak now. So I'm quite sure through the years, from 12 to my age now, that smoking has had some effect of the reason why I've had these surgeries. But I still have not been able to quit.
All right. Thank you for being so honest and open with us. Now we're going to move on. Oh, no, there's another question I would like to ask. We know, and there's a term that says, you know, once a smoker, always a smoker, once an addict, always an addict, that, you know, you just kind of carry it and you just have to stay away from that bad choice. And we know that people who take their body off of sugar still crave sugar or chocolate and that type of thing, or maybe it's soda. You don't allow your body to have it, but you still kind of crave it. Do any of you still, you know, from time to time have a craving for cigarettes, and this would be for the 3 that have completely quit? And well, we know you had that divine intervention, so we know she's not going back there. Okay, what about you, Reverend Robinson?
No, I don't. When I stopped smoking, I did have the crave for like 2 weeks, but after 2 weeks, I don't have the craving anymore.
Good. Okay. Debbie, do you have anything to share?
I would say that I don't have a craving for it, but there are still times where I can, if I am walking like to Walmart's front door and 5 people are over there smoking a cigarette, if it hits me just right with whatever the right combinations of things are, there are days where I go, God, that still smells good. And I know that smoking actually stinks, but there, I believe, with my understanding of addiction, that there's switches that get flipped. And, you know, there's a lot of people who like cooked cabbage too, so, and they think it smells good, so, you know. But I don't crave it at all. Okay. Don't miss a thing.
All right. Okay, thank you. The next question is for all 4 of you. If you were in the business of giving advice and making recommendations, we want to know, what would you offer to a non-smoker who's thinking about taking up the habit? If you were to give advice or make a recommendation to a non-smoker, and you know that person is thinking about taking up the habit, what advice or recommendations would you make to that individual? And Carletta, we'll start on your end first. But you say, gosh, she would start with me. Okay.
My first question would be, why are you being so stupid? It's not going to make you look better. It's not going to make you smarter. So why would you be stupid enough to even start? Look at me. I've gone for almost 30 years of smoking and can't quit. So why would you even begin? That's what I told my boys. Why did you even begin to smoke? My oldest son said it was because he went into service and went over to Iraq and Kuwait and Baghdad, and he said, Mom, I had to start. It was either that or shoot myself. So I started smoking. I said, okay, you got a good reason, but hurry up and quit. My youngest son, he started smoking because I see you be so frustrated, Mom, and you be trying to do this and trying to do that, and my nerves got bad too, so I just picked him up. But that's no excuse. So why would you start? That's stupid.
Okay, thank you. That's good advice. All right. Okay. Debbie, we're just going to go down the line.
I think, well, let me just share with you what I do, because I have some family members who are still using tobacco, and what I've noticed is in their children, and these are like my daughter's age, and they have little children, and I will notice that her son, he's 5, will actually pick up a pencil and he kind of holds it like a cigarette. Anytime I catch him doing that, I tell him, that's not how you hold a pencil. Because what I know is he's just mimicking behavior that he sees. And if somebody doesn't say, don't do that, he's just going to keep on going. And it's kind of like how the body begins to start incorporating the behavior of smoking without even a conscious thought, really. So that's what I do. I tell the little ones to hold their pencils right.
All right, thank you. Again, I think that's great advice. We hold our pencils right. All right, thanks, Debbie. Reverend Robinson?
I would look them dead in the eye, and I would tell them, please, don't start. And then I would tell them a story about my sister, the one that I mentioned earlier, that we both started smoking at the same time. But she's fighting lung cancer. And I would tell them the whole story of that.
Thank you. Thank you.
My choice is that I would ask, can you really afford it? You know, you do suffer the consequences of your choices, and your choice will depend on how wide your footprint is. Do you want to stay here longer, or do you want to leave here faster? And you just got to be, what you said, real with anyone who's deciding or even attempting to go that way. Social media has a lot to do with it. So, you just have to be straight up with them and just be perfectly honest and show them how much you care about them, about the choices that they will make.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Ruthie, how are we doing on time? I have about 5 minutes. Okay. Okay, we'll have one other question. And how many of you live in a community where you had cessation services or support group or classes where you can go, where smokers in your community can go to get help in quitting? I know you live in Monticello and grew up in Portland. Well, I know Ms. Moses from Little Rock, so that's probably something there. And Carletta is over in Sherwood? North Little Rock. Okay. And what about you, Mr. Robinson now?
Yes.
We're big friends, aren't we? Reverend Robinson.
Not that I know of in my area. Nothing that I know of.
Okay. And you know some other smokers in your community?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Before we open it up for Q&A, because we want you to have an opportunity, I just want to share with the panelists, and I know all of them know, but I'm going to just kind of reaffirm and to Ms. Henderson, but she said she knew the quit line, and that quit line is still there, and I believe it's new, probably since you used it, and improved since you used it. So anyway, we just want you to know that the service is still there. I wanted to throw that in before we got to the Q&A. Okay. But at this time, we're going to pause, and I do thank the panelists for being so open and honest and sharing information with us. But now it's your time. If you have some questions, I had mine gathered on paper, but perhaps there's something turning in your head that you would like to ask, or perhaps you're curious and you would like to put it to the panel. This is the time. Do we have we have one person coming, and just a mic right here in the center. And if you have questions, just line up behind Ms. Joy. Otherwise, she's going to have to just ask the question for us, all of us. Is it on, Joy? Joy, I know you can do what I can. Hey, look, I know you can talk loudly.
So since I can talk loud, my question is to Ms. Hampton, Carletta. Since you are still a smoker, my question to you is, have you considered e-cigarettes? And if you haven't, why haven't you? And what do you think about e-cigarettes?
No, I have never considered e-cigarettes. First of all, I don't know what they are.
That's a good thing. I would consider. That's a good thing.
Just because it says it is.
Yeah.
What are they? I mean, is it a cigarette?
I will talk to you later.
I don't know.
We'll make sure you know all about them because we don't want you to go home void of knowledge, okay? Okay. Thanks for that question, Joy. Next question. Do you mind speaking?
My question is for the stage, sitting next to
Mr. Robinson, Ms. Moses?
Yeah.
Okay, Ms. Moses, okay.
You said that God was your first intervention. You asked him. How long was it before?
That final stage happened. It was, like I said before, it was progressive. I had tried to stop many times. It was a work in progress. It was not instantaneous for me. It was through a period, your New Year's resolution. I'm going to stop this year. I'm going to stop next year, And after a while, it just didn't happen. And I just kept going at it.
The reason why I asked you, people try to intervene all the time.
Absolutely.
And for him being the head of your life, that you can go and ask him. and it be done like that, people automatically say, oh, it's easy to quit smoking. All you got to do is put the cigarettes down and tear up your pack and do all this other stuff. But it's not that easy. And I commend you for honestly being real and being
Thank you.
saying that it takes more than just by word of mouth.
Yeah.
By word of people. You know, it takes more than just that.
You got to work at it.
Yes.
If that's what your true desire is.
Good morning.
Good morning.
First of all, I would like to commend all the panelists for being honest about what your experience. Something else that Catherine says is, we all friends here, so I speak loud anyway, so I'm accustomed to it. You know how at church they say God He loves the sinner, but He hates the sin. And we're the same way with tobacco usage. And we love the smoker, but we hate what's done, what's the result of the smoking or the using of the tobacco products. I am just curious with, old people got to put stuff down. With this young lady on the end, when you talked about your attempts to stop using tobacco and also not knowing the ill effects of what your long-term use may or may not have had on your body or whatever, have you tried a step-down process? And I said that because I said it to smokers all the time. Everybody does not have the religious influence. Because my mom was one that says, I prayed to God and He took the taste out of my mouth because she chewed days work tobacco when we were small. And my parents were also of the I guess the era that you do as I say and not as I do. If I smoke, if I catch you doing it or chew and whatever, you are a dead person, more or less. But have you considered the step down? Because, anything that we practice, anything that we do, we got to practice at it. And I always say, if you do it every hour, stretch it to an hour and a half. And then next time to 2 hours, and et cetera. Have you tried a step down process as opposed to, you tried the quit line? It's not instantaneous for everyone. Everyone can't do the patch. Everyone can't do the gum. And then sometimes we have to think about the greater implication of it, like you talked about your children. And all of our babies, they're dear and they're at our heart. And I can say this, I lost a brother to cancer. He smoked like a chimney, Maybe I gotta die of something. You know the thing. And I also lost a son to a homicide. But when you think about that homicide and that lung cancer that he alluded to earlier, and if you had to choose, you want to go quick, because lung cancer is not the way to go. But do you ever consider maybe doing the step-down process rather than just saying I'm going to do it because I'm stressed? Because to me, the first thing that you would say to that question Catherine asked, and I have to say this, what would you say to a non-smoker who's considering it? I'm not going to be selfish. I'm going to think about all the people that my smoking would influence. The babies, the seniors, and all that. Have you considered a step-down process?
Yes, and actually, in the last month or so, I have been working with a young lady that's in my department, and she's taught me how to, every time I want a cigarette, write down why. And I've been doing that. And I could go for hours, like today. I have not had a cigarette since I went to bed last night. I don't smoke going to work. You know, I don't get up in the morning having to have a cigarette. When I get to work and I'm working, and about 11 o'clock, so then I've started writing down, okay, I'm going to the mailroom. I can sneak away from the office right now. So I'm writing that down. Okay, I'm sneaking away from the office, saying I'm going to the mailroom so I can have a cigarette. Then I don't have another cigarette till lunchtime. I wrote that down. Okay, it's lunchtime. I don't very seldom leave the office anymore. But I have my lunch. I go outside and I'll have a cigarette. But I don't smoke a whole cigarette. I never smoke a whole cigarette. I hit it a couple of times and I put it out. A whole cigarette can last me almost a whole day.
And I commend you for your honesty.
I'm in the process of trying to quit. I'm learning new ways to try to quit because the ways that have been out there have not helped me quit.
I commend you for that because you're not the only closet smoker in here. And you are honest enough to step up or sit up and say so, and I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.